Branding or web design? Which one comes first? Honest answer, branding. But more specifically, brand strategy first. This happens all too often. You purchase a website template, you choose some colors, you pick some fonts, and then you start trying to plug in the copy, images, all of the things to communicate what your business does. And you get stuck. I get it. This is kind of the fun part where you can play around and design something beautiful for your business. You get to choose layouts, you get to tweak colors, and you write website copy directly inside the template. And at first that feels productive, but then the cracks start to show up. You don't know what headline to write. You're not sure how to communicate what you do or what makes you different. Your offers feel messy and your pages are long but not clear. That's because you've skipped brand strategy. When you start your website design with the visuals first, your website ends up carrying way too much weight. It has to figure out your positioning in real time. And it's supposed to carry messaging that actually was never even defined. If you're a business owner who has redesigned your website more times than you can count, it's not a design problem. It's actually a branding problem. Every month you spend redesigning or tweaking your website, you're losing clients. 68% of organizations say brand consistency is the key to revenue growth. When you're designing your website first, it might feel like you're making great progress, that you're building momentum in your business. It can feel a little fun. But the problem is that you aren't thinking about a strategy first design. It's always going to feel like something's a little bit off. You're going to be constantly tweaking it. You're going to be reworking your messaging. You're going to be trying out different colors, different fonts to see if that's the problem. When really what you needed was a strategy, a direction in the first place before you started building something. When you start with proper positioning, knowing who your ideal client is, and knowing how to speak to them, everything else becomes a lot easier. While this can be a little bit of a slower start, having this foundation gives you something really solid to build off of. And the website will really truly reflect who you are as a business owner because it's done intentionally and it's rooted in strategy. A lot of people think that branding is the visuals. It's the colors, the logos, the fonts, and that is part of branding. But brand strategy should be the starting point before you build your visual brand. Brand strategy includes your positioning, your messaging. It speaks to your values. It identifies who your ideal client is, your personality, all of the things that are going to give you a solid foundation for building. It's the most important piece of the puzzle. It's the table where all the puzzle pieces are going to come together. Once you've identified your brand strategy, then you can build off of it. You can choose colors that connect to that strategy. You can pick fonts. You can write copy. You can create offers that speak to exactly what your ideal clients need from you as a service provider. In very rare cases, you can build a website before you have built your brand strategy. The thing is, it actually ends up taking up more time and resources when you do things this way, but sometimes it's just a natural evolution of how you've built your business. Sometimes you're starting out and you don't realize that you need a brand strategy first. So then you have to go back, redo that type of work, and then you build off of that. And if you have a template you really like, but it's basically going to be an entire rebuild. Branding and web design are really about the entire client experience, not just the visual representation of what your business looks like. So what's the ideal order for service providers to build a great online presence? Well, of course, as I mentioned before, it starts with strategy. It's your positioning. It is the foundation of which you are going to build everything else off of. You need to know who you're speaking to. You need to know why you're doing what you're doing. You need to know how it brings value. You need to know what your values are, who your ideal clients are, what their problems are, how you're going to differentiate yourself from other people offering similar or adjacent services. This is the most important piece. The next step is your visual translation of your brand strategy. It's how you're going to make people feel when they land on your website. It's what makes you stand out. It should show your differences. It should give people a feel for your vibe, your energy. And these decisions aren't just built on what you think looks nice. It's really intentional decisions that make people feel seen and connect with the people that you actually want to work with. Once you've got those two things down pat, I highly recommend working on your copy, which will be influenced by your brand strategy, your messaging, your personality, all of the things that have been identified there. And then you also want to make sure that you have brand photography. You want to make sure that you're actually showing your face. You are the face of your brand, and people want to see that. People tend to trust people more if they see images of the founder on the website. It doesn't matter if you're a small or big business. This is a really impactful decision that you make. And your brand images should also be based on what has been identified in your brand strategy and your visual branding. So, for example, if you're not one of those hoity-toity lawyers, your images are not going to be you sitting at a boardroom table with a bunch of other lawyers. Maybe it's going to show you meeting clients in a coffee shop or a dance club. And your headline is, I meet my clients where they're at. That is how brand strategy, visual branding, and brand photography comes together to show a version of you that's going to get you chosen. And then you create your website. You put all of those pieces together. So you've got your copy, which is infused with what you've identified in your brand strategy. You've got your colors, you've got your fonts, and you've got your beautiful brand photography. Then all that's left is really making sure that you put everything together in a neat, tidy, impactful way. Your visuals will do a lot of the talking for you. Your messaging will obviously do a lot of the talking for you as well. And the clean user experience is going to be what sets everything else apart. When you're designing your website, you want to make sure that the user experience is following a strategic order of how you want clients to interact with your website. So for example, if you want to collect leads, you're going to make sure that you have a way to do that with an email opt-in or a newsletter sign-up page or a sales page. All about putting all these puzzle pieces together to make sure they're always touching back on that initial brand strategy that you've created. If you want to come across as a brand that's really accessible, maybe that means when you're creating your website that you have an area for them to sign up for an instant one-on-one call with you. Or maybe you're a little bit more protective of your energy. So you have a podcast and you direct people there so they can get a taste of what it's like to work with you, to see you, to hear from you. So what comes first, branding or web design? The answer is going to be branding, but more specifically, brand strategy. If you skip strategy, your website is going to become really expensive guesswork. Intentional brands convert better. They just do. They attract more aligned clients. If you're here, you've probably outgrown the piece-by-piece fixes. You need a full system that works, and that has to start with your brand strategy. If your website looks fine and isn't converting, it's probably not a design issue. It's probably a branding issue. It usually comes down to messaging and strategy. If you're not converting people into clients, your positioning isn't clear, your messaging isn't speaking to the right person, your offer isn't landing the way it should. You have to fix the foundation first, and then design comes after. So before you start redesigning your website and tweaking the fonts and colors again, start with your strategy first. A great starting point is taking my free brand vibe quiz. This comes with a free brand clarity workbook to tackle some of the most important parts of your strategy. Go to unbuttonedbrands.com/quiz and you'll find it there. I'll see you next time.